So Prime Minister Modi launching a fierce attack on what he calls dynastic politics. Target clearly the Samajwadi Party RLD alliance in Uttar Pradesh, the key state that goes to the polls tomorrow, but also in a way on the Congress party and the Gandhi family once again, and indeed possibly on several regional parties. Joining us now to decode and dissect the Prime Minister's speech, GVL Narasimha Rao, the BJP's Member of Parliament and spokesperson, Manisha Priyam, senior political analyst. Also joining me, Sharat Pradhan, based in Lucknow, has tracked Uttar Pradesh for years, and Rahul Srivastav, our evergreen national affairs editor. Thank you all very much for joining us. I want to come to you, GVL, first to ask one simple question. What was the necessity for the Prime Minister to do this interview one day before the UP polls? He had spoken in the Lok Sabha, he had spoken on Monday in the Lok Sabha, Tuesday in the Rajya Sabha. On Wednesday decides prime time, a few hours before UP polls, I need to speak more. Is this a sign that the BJP is worried about Uttar Pradesh, or a sign of confidence to pull even further ahead?
Rajdeep, I think it's a very innocuous question, I would say. Prime Minister or for that matter anybody is free to speak to the media any time of their choice. Honorable Prime Minister was speaking spoke in Parliament both in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha on a particular subject. Because that was a motion of thanks to the speech delivered by Honorable President. And there are, obviously he cannot talk, he would not use that platform to talk about elections in Uttar Pradesh or the ills of the caste parties in Uttar Pradesh, because he was speaking from a national perspective in Parliament. But today certainly he gave an interview in which he addressed.
So this was a campaign speech after the campaign is
wide
over.
range of questions.
Mr. GVL Narasimha Rao, no, is this a campaign speech? Mr. GVL, is this a campaign speech for UP after the campaigning in Uttar Pradesh first phase was over 5 p.m. 8 p.m., 12 hours before UP goes to the polls, he needs to reach out again. Was this a opportunity for him to deliver a campaign speech for UP? And does that suggest that you are worried about what happens in the first round in Western UP, where there is a large consolidation, some say, of Jats and Muslims, particularly after the farmer agitation?
Rajdeep, I think you know the BJP as a party, we have always made our best effort to win elections. But this speech, this is not a speech. This is an interview given to a news agency, which is platform neutral, so that it can be accessed by anyone, any channel to telecast, and also news networks, newspapers to cover. He was not addressing only the election bound states. He has talked about every issue concerning the national politics. He also answered about how there is a propaganda, the anti-India or anti-government propaganda that goes on even in the international media. I think he talked about several issues which are not directly connected with these elections. There is no, when elections are happening in some states, there is no bar on giving interviews on a national scale. So I think therefore it's not any nervousness. We are confident of winning 300 plus tally once again in Uttar Pradesh. And you have seen Honorable Prime Minister also express that confidence, because under Prime Minister Modi ji and Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath ji, we have delivered a governance that fulfilled the expectations and aspirations of people of Uttar Pradesh. Therefore, this double engine government will certainly gain further momentum in this election. We are not at all worried about the prospect of election. We are confident of winning a 3/4 majority for the BJP alone.
You know, let me just press you one more time on this. You have looked very closely at the Election Commission's Code of Conduct. You are right that technically the Prime Minister, who's not a contender in this first phase of polling, is perhaps entitled to express his views on Uttar Pradesh even after the campaign deadline is over. But do you think morally, ethically it's right, or should the law be changed where everyone should campaign till the very last minute now? Why have this 5 p.m. deadline? Let's go the United States way. till the very last minute, keep campaigning, keep using the media.
Rajdeep, I think I don't think you are unaware of the provisions of the Code of Conduct. I think we have elections tomorrow. While polling is happening in one part of Uttar Pradesh, all political parties will be addressing rallies, even virtual rallies in other parts of Uttar Pradesh. Or maybe in Uttarakhand.
Sure,
because the Uttarakhand election is on the 14th. So I think, you see, what you are barred. You see, you have had Rahul Gandhi in Lok Sabha elections giving interviews while the polling was going on, and all television networks carried. We did not object to it, because in today's time and age, you cannot put a bar on any kind of communications. You are not. Then I think I would advocate all television channels should be switched off at 5 p.m. 3 days before, so that nobody gets to see anything. So otherwise, how? So this is taking it too far.
I'm saying allow campaigning till the very last minute.
What needs to be avoided is door to door.
I'm actually saying campaign till the very last minute.
No, it is on television. No. I think No, Rajdeep, you cannot campaign in the areas physically, because physical campaigns have anyway not have been happening as is the usual practice. Secondly, there is a complete strict no on door-to-door campaigning, and also even doing canvassing within the areas which are doing polls. It does not mean that you stop all means of communication and messaging. There is no ban on speaking on television or speaking in parliament or speaking in another state where elections are due.
Okay, you made your point. Rahul Srivastava, are you surprised with the timing, or is this typical of Prime Minister Modi, who has the ability to use the media till the very end? We've seen it in previous polls as well. Even tomorrow, while the polling is going to go on, he's going to be campaigning in Goa, addressing a rally there. So as GVL Narasimha Rao says, when you've got 5 states going to the polls in a multi-phase contest, you're going to have people campaigning till the very end. Was this, to your mind, with one eye, more 1.5 eye on Uttar Pradesh, or 1 3/4 of an eye on Uttar Pradesh?
Rajdeep, we have seen long enough at the level of the Prime Minister or the Mantris who decides the time and date of the interview. Once we know that who decides the time and date, it's obvious that it was chosen to be today, and barely a few hours, less than 12 hours in fact, before voting starts for the first phase of UP. So it's obvious that the Prime Minister wanted to be on air with an interview on issues that he wanted. Now see what he has talked about. He has talked about policies being hijacked. He has clarified where attacked Akhilesh Yadav indirectly. Dangai Party is something of a charge that the BJP levels against Samajwadi Party. The Teni issue gave a clarification. Do engine ki sarkar, the dual engine sarkar element, he gave a clarification. Fake socialists, that's against Akhilesh Yadav. Parivarwad, family politics, dynastic politics, Akhilesh Yadav, Jayant and others. UP ke ladke, Bua attack on BSP, S.P-RLD. ED and IT raids, explanation, clarification, concern relevant to vis-a-vis UP. Farmers outreach, छोटे किसानों का दिल जीतना चाहता हूं. Again UP. योगी हजारों बसें चलाई जब कोविड हुआ, countering the mismanagement or the complaints of mismanagement against the UP government in the first when the lockdown was on. If you look at the entire speech, it is a political reach out. Rajdeep, there should be absolutely no doubt. The timing decided by the PM, it's a political reach out by the PM. The fact is that are the rules such that allow this kind of campaigning after campaigning has shut down? These are some grey areas that political parties someday will have to sit down and decide whether they want such influencing to happen so close when the law says that influencing should not happen after 48 hours.
Okay, that's an issue for the Election Commission to look at, and we hope that they will once again clarify the situation. But Sharad Pradhan, you're there in Lucknow. You saw consistent attack by the Prime Minister in a way on the Samajwadi Party, either direct or indirect, whether it's the issue of Parivarwad, whether it's the issue of so-called Samajwad as he called it, whether it's UP ke ladke. How do you see it? Is Akhilesh Yadav getting under the skin of the BJP in Uttar Pradesh? Has this alliance with Jayant Chaudhary in Western UP, where the BJP has high stakes, is it actually working? Do you believe that there is a sense that Akhilesh has some momentum?
That's precisely the reason, Rajdeep, that the Prime Minister at this 11th hour decided to go to town once again on a rhetoric, because this is something which they have been talking for over the past 2 months, and there's been palpable worry in the BJP ranks and file about whatever was happening in Western UP, because mind you, it is the unity that was between the Muslims and Hindus in Western UP, which has become a cause of worry for the BJP, which has thrived on the divide that was caused on account of the Muzaffarnagar riots in 2013 and gave BJP a big swing in 14, 17 and 19. Now this, once they're reunited, it was a cause of worry, and I think that was one of the major reasons why Prime Minister decided to roll back the controversial farm laws, in the hope that the farmers and the Jats, farmers I'm referring to because they are dominated by Jats, and they would start falling in place with the BJP, which they did not. So, and at this point of time, I think BJP has been quite desperate and its desperation has been visible when Amit Shah went door to door talking about trying to raise issues, divisive issues, in the sense that to divide the Hindus and Muslims once again, because I think that was their mainstay. They somehow wanted Jats, and the Jats and Muslim unity was not something that was comfortable for them, and they know that it's going to tell in the election tomorrow.
So you sense an element of desperation, but Manisha Priyam, some of those points will hit home when the Prime Minister specifically talks about women being safer in Yogi Adityanath's rule, referring to law and order. When the Prime Minister, in a sense, targets the Samajwadi Party for being Parivarvad, party is family. These are all issues that may hit home. Do you believe that the Prime Minister, in a way, is looking at setting the battle lines between the double engine ki sarkar on the one side and a party as family, i.e. the Samajwadi Party, and dare I say even the Congress Party? That is the kind of binary that the Prime Minister continues to build on. Kamdar versus Namdar.
Yes, indeed. And if you see, it's a supremely confident Prime Minister, but he is now trying to portray himself in the image of a Karyakarta. He says, if my photos are taken, I am like one of the Karyakartas, and charge up his Karyakartas. He wants to talk about his innings as the erstwhile Chief Minister of Gujarat. He says regional aspirations are fine, but Parivarvad is not. Now, the person questioning at the other end named Akhilesh many times in the questions. The Prime Minister did not take the name, as if it's a battle between unequals. Only once were the do ladke referred, and it was also said do ladke and buaji. So the Prime Minister made light. In a sense, therefore, he is communicating with the electorate from above and telling them what his view of the political opponents on the ground is like. So it's a view from above, and it's a view where much of what is happening on the ground is depicted by him in terms of the theory and philosophy of politics. Remember, he refers first of all to the philosophy of anti-incumbency. And he says, look, anti-incumbency happened in a particular point of time. It doesn't happen now because we do a politics of deliveries. So the politics of deliveries, the fact that he says that the government will do nothing in business, but government's job is to do something for a garib. Now that's the electorate that's up at stake in large parts of Eastern UP. And he says, unka ghar banana, unko toilets dena, unko khana dena, unke kisani ke problems samajhna. So ek taraf, he is making light of who the political opponents are, mired as he believes in Parivarvad. He says at one point of time, 45 members of the family. That's the kind of detail he has, but never takes the name. So the Prime Minister is supremely confident. It's Uttar Pradesh that's the center of the eyeball, and he's referring to the issues that he thinks can become pan-UP issues. At this point of time, UP is in a peculiar catch that Western UP has farmers issues and Eastern UP has other issues like joblessness and high inflation rates and prices of cylinders. Now, never once are the high prices of cylinders mentioned, never once is unemployment mentioned, but the issues that are mentioned here are largely that if you don't vote for us, you will go back to Dangai Raj you will go back to Gunda Raj and trust us because we will give you a government of law and order. So in a sense, he's trying to endear his electorate and give them political wisdom that the theories of anti-incumbency are failure theories. It's now an era of the politics of deliveries. He also seems to be defending Mr. Yogi a bit and saying that when Akhilesh is criticizing him and saying that ye development ke karya to humne chalaye the, he's saying it actually means our development is so good that they want to take the claim for it. So he's answering each one of those questions that Akhilesh has been raising on the ground, but he never refers to him in the first person, also defending Mr. Yogi, but speaking directly to the electorate in Eastern UP, which is the poor Garib who he wants to endear, and in Western UP,
but he's not, But he's not addressing, as you said, and thereby GBL Narasimha Rao, contentious issues, unemployment. The fact is that you've got a situation of rising prices. You've got a situation where there will be those who will question the fact that during COVID times, where were our MLAs? Why were they not there on the ground when we were suffering? The issues, in a way, where the Prime Minister or the government has to answer questions are not really raised at the moment. Instead, the Prime Minister wants to focus on dynasty versus so-called democracy, Namdar versus Kamdar. Are those the worrying issues for you as you go into this battle of Uttar Pradesh, GBL Narasimha Rao, the economic bread and butter issues?
Rajdeep, I think Prime Minister answered all the questions that were posed to him. You have 1 hour interview, so I think a large number of questions have actually been fit into it. And the questions that you are raising, he has already answered them in great detail, both in Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. And you are talking about inflation. I think look at what are the inflation levels today, marginally higher than what they were during the last 5 years. From 2014 to 2020, they were well below 5%, in the range of 4 to 4.5% inflation. What was the inflation in the earlier years? During the entire Congress, the UPA tenure, it was about 10%. During Indira Gandhi's tenure, on some years it touched 35%, 34% inflation, India's historic highest. Today, India's inflation levels are still the lowest across large economies of the world. US, a country which always had a very low inflation, today is hitting a historic 7% inflation.
Petrol, diesel remain high, cooking gas remains high. The question in a 1 hour long interview,
Rajdeep,
you're right that the Prime Minister addressed some of the, you're right, sir. Sir, 1 minute. You're right that the Prime Minister addressed some of these issues when he was in Parliament. However, these remain worrying issues for people. When you look at the job situation, even in Uttar Pradesh, when you look at rising prices, these are issues that concern people. Let's not compare ourselves globally at the moment. Even though the problem is global, the fact is, at the end of the day, we have to find solutions for the situation at home.
Absolutely, we have to find solutions, but the fact remains, and the fact must be told. The fact remains, we are the fastest growing large economy today with the lowest inflation. And how can you, this fact has to be told to the people. So certainly, our economic management in the wake of even COVID challenge has been certainly spectacular. Otherwise, what explains our performance? Number one. Number two, as regards unemployment, Honorable Prime Minister in Lok Sabha also talked about what the research tells you. What the SBI research shows that 1.5 crore jobs have been saved in the organized MSME sector because of the government's credit guarantee scheme. Does anybody talk about it? Let me give you some statistics. CMIE data. A lot of you are very happy to quote CMIE data. CMIE data shows Rajasthan's unemployment rate today is 3 times that of all India. So what does Congress party have to say about it? Do they have no responsibility to perform in the states where they are in power? All India January unemployment rate according to CMIE data is about 8%. And Rajasthan is 20%. So what is Congress party? What they are preaching to the rest of the world? The Gyani called Rahul Gandhi. Can he not share some Gyan to Ashok Gehlot?
Okay. Yeah, you know, the fact at the end of the day, though, is that Rajasthan is not going to the elections. Uttar Pradesh is. Rahul Srivastav, on the ground, you've been traveling through Western UP. Would you believe that the Prime Minister has addressed some of the concerns? Because he's primarily seemed to focus on the fact that, look, Yogi Adityanath's government provided a sense of security. Earlier speeches, he's spoken about free rations that the government has given Labharthis, the beneficiaries of his various schemes. What's the sense that you got on your ground through your travels in Uttar Pradesh, particularly in Western Uttar Pradesh that goes to the polls tomorrow?
Rajdeep, I found that the advantage of 14, 17 and 19 is gone. It's over. The polarization, the acuteness of it that kept the Hindutva element and the differences between two prominent communities in Western UP above the surface, that's over. And that is where lies the catch. The BJP can create a Hindu monolith, benefit from it to the extent that 53 odd of the 58 seat last time around went to the BJP in the first, which are polling in the first place. That's the kind of polarization. That's not there. There is a more tactical alliance. The Jats are changing strategy to save their Chaudhara hut and their domination. In that, they all may not vote en masse for RLD, but the farmers protest on all those elements are taking votes away from the BJP. At test, Rajdeep, is the management skill of caste votes, several caste votes. And in that, I think, today, Rajdeep, what PM has done, he has put his face on the BJP's campaign. Tomorrow morning, when voters get up and go to vote, they will have Prime Minister's word, Prime Minister's speech and his face. That's what eventually he has done. If there is an anger among the non-Yadav voters and the OBCs and others, you see this Parivarvad vote element is very critical, Rajdeep, because that's the vote that the BJP can benefit from even in Western Uttar Pradesh, Rajdeep, because the Sainis, the Prajapatis, the Kashyaps and others are very sizable and they can actually counter a lot of losses that the BJP may incur. And I think what the Prime Minister, by bringing up the law and order element, is one of the undercurrents in Western Uttar Pradesh. I think what the Prime Minister has indicated, that definitely there is a bit of jitters and the BJP knows it may lose ground, it has lost ground. But I think it's an attempt to damage control, minimize the damage which can happen in Western Uttar Pradesh, and the Prime Minister has put his face on it.
You know, GVL Narasimha Rao, in your previous avatar, you were a pollster. I want to ask you, and I hope you will reply honestly, not easy, I know, now that you're a BJP MP. In 2017, you got 315 seats, 317. How many seats are you going to get realistically in 2022, given the fact that since 2019, we've seen in successive state elections an erosion in the BJP vote of anything between 10 to 12%. So when Mr. Modi is not on the ticket, we've seen an erosion post 2019. Give me a realistic assessment of Uttar Pradesh. Use your psephological hat, if not your political one this time.
Yes, Rahul, I will do that. But before that, on the unemployment question, UP and Uttarakhand have and Gujarat have among the lowest unemployment rates according to the CMI report. It's only UP and Uttarakhand is only about 3.5%. compared to 8% for the country and 20% for Rajasthan. Okay, and as far as prices are concerned, again, petrol, diesel prices are among the lowest in Uttar Pradesh. You can drive from Mumbai to UP and still save a few $1,000
You didn't
on
answer my
petrol and
question.
diesel.
You didn't answer
Okay,
my
now
question.
coming to your question.
Am I right in analyzing
I'm
this?
coming there,
Just a minute,
Rajdeep.
sir. Am I right in analyzing? Just a minute. I'll re-ask it. Am I right in analyzing that in Goa you are in serious trouble because of anti-incumbency? In Punjab, BJP is not a contender with Captain Amrinder Singh. In Uttarakhand, you changed 3 chief ministers in a year, so you are in an element of trouble with anti-incumbency. Manipur also, small state, we don't know which way it will swing. So you put all your eggs in your UP basket. How many eggs will you get at the end?
Rahul, I am a vegetarian, therefore I will answer in terms of how many tomatoes we'll get. Okay, so this is an election comparing Lok Sabha and Assembly election results is quite odd, because what many of you do is to look at the vote share in parliament election and then say your vote share has fallen in assembly election, because the voting patterns,
Yes.
national
Yes.
parties tend to get more votes in Lok Sabha polls compared to assembly elections. So therefore, I'm not expecting a 50% vote share, but certainly we are retaining our vote share, as all the polls suggest, including my own assessments. We are 40 plus vote share in Uttar Pradesh today, about 41-42%, and we are certainly likely to get a similar tally like last time. I think I would like to recall the previous polls in 2017. All the polls, there was not a poll I can remember which actually predicted a BJP win. Many of them said it will be close to a majority. Today, we are going to again prove the polls wrong and get more than 300 seats, because you have a very popular Prime Minister who has delivered development to Uttar Pradesh as the rest of the country, and you have a very popular Chief Minister who has caught the imagination of the people of the state and delivered on governance and law and order. So we have a double advantage in Uttar Pradesh, so we'll win a historic mandate.
I must tell you that I predicted 270 plus for you in 2017, so sometimes we get it right. But just 30 seconds, Sharad Pradhan, do you believe that GVL Narasimha Rao has reason to believe that double engine ki sarkar will take the BJP back to 300 plus seats, or do you believe that this is a much tighter contest? Very quickly.
Well, I'm sure he's wearing his political hat in saying so, and not his cephalogist as you had expected. So obviously it is his political compulsion to claim what the party leadership has been claiming all along. But there's reason to believe that the party is definitely going down because of various factors. Other than the communal issue, it is also the anger among the youth, and mind you, and that is because of joblessness. And UP, the records, the official records show that the jobs have come down between 2014 and 21. The 2 crore jobs have come down in UP. Poverty levels have gone up. So all these factors are coming into play, and of course the point of the non-Yadav OBCs, the manner in which Akhilesh Yadav has succeeded in stitching this alliance, is also denting the BJP. Remember, after all, it was Narendra Modi who had managed to bring them along with him in 2014, and it's a dent in the BJP vote bank. So they are obviously coming down quite drastically in these 58 seats.
Okay, so clearly the Prime Minister, in a sense, has set the stage for the Battle of Uttar Pradesh, which starts tomorrow morning and goes through 7 phases, India's most populous state. But remember, there are 4 other states also which are going to the polls in this round of polling. In fact, I've just come back from one of those states, and I'll be with you on Elections on My Plate, Friday 9 p.m. from the state of Punjab, where all I will say is change appears to be in the air. Not on the plate, but in the air. Listen in to what we're going to give you from Punjab, and there's plenty more food for thought as we continue to track the elections of 2022.